When music critics found out the most successful singer-songwriter ever was writing a movie theme back in the 70s, the reactions were definitely mixed. Yeah, some were positive, but others, they had no faith in the music. In fact, one of the decision makers was ready to pass on what would become a game changer and even helped reinvigorate one of the most popular film franchises in history. I guess when it all came down to it, the artist had a job to do, and he had to do it well, even if that meant giving those other fellows hell. The story's coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you asked your parents for a quarter to play your favorite song or songs on the jukebox when you were a kid, you're going to love this channel. Nostalgia all the time, the stories of the songs straight from the artists. Make sure that you subscribe below right now. Click the bell so that you're always in the know on our latest interviews and features. We also have a Patreon. You're going to want to check that out. That's the best way to support this channel and keep it a daily channel. In 1972, movie producers Harry Saltzman and Albert R. Broccoli were gearing up for the 8th installment of one of cinema's most successful franchises.
Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
The title of the flick was Live and Let Die, and it was based on Ian Fleming's 1954 novel of the same name. However, the series' iconic leading man Sean Connery had retired from the role, which left the franchise at a precarious crossroads. Sir Roger Moore, who was actually their original second choice behind Connery, got the call.
This ever-changing world in which we live in.
And although Moore was already a journeyman with shows like The Saint and Maverick to his credit, Saltzman and Broccoli still needed to hedge their bets, so to speak. So they connected with another Sir in the entertainment industry, Sir Paul McCartney. At this point in Paul's career, he was playing with his post-Beatles British-American rock band, Wings. They formed in 1971, and the lineup would change frequently over the years, but at this time, besides Paul, the band consisted of his wife, Linda McCartney. She was on keyboards, drummer Denny Sywell, guitarist Henry McCullough, and Denny Lane on guitar and bass. Previously, in 1971, they had released their debut record, Wild Life, and were actually working on their follow-up, Red Rose Speedway, when McCartney agreed to the project.
Oh, baby, don't you let me down tomorrow. And my love.
Paul McCartney reveled in the challenge of writing to order, and he gladly accepted the commission. As a writer who thinks of himself as part craftsman, he said, "The idea is akin to being asked to make a bit of furniture for the National Collection or something. You know, there's a prestige thing. There was for me anyway." Actually, at this point, the screenplay wasn't even finished, so Paul McCartney spent a Saturday reading Fleming's novel, and then he got to writing the very next day. And before the weekend was over, the song was done. Incredible.
Say, live and let die.
When Wings co-founder Denny Sywell recounted the events, he said, "Everybody thought it was cool that we were doing something for James Bond. We were up at the house one day and he just read the book the night before. He just sat down at the piano and said, James Bond, da-da-da-dum." And he started screwing around at the piano, and within 10 minutes, he had that song written. It was awesome. Songwriting genius. By the following week, Paul and his Wings crew had recorded the song, with help from none other than legendary Beatles producer George Martin. Martin came aboard the Bond project to arrange and produce the entire movie score. So in a serendipitous twist of fate, the old partners were together again, back in action. Martin also brought in percussionist Ray Cooper and incorporated a full orchestra for Live and Let Die. Now, according to Sywell, everyone knew their parts well, and after a few rundowns with the orchestra, it took only a few takes to get the master down. So once Live and Let Die was recorded, Martin flew to Jamaica to play it for Saltzman. The film producer was impressed when he heard it, but get this, he mistook the track for a demo. He asked George Martin who he thought should sing the master. Saltzman favored a female soul singer like Shirley Bassey or Thelma Houston, and actually, he recommended the latter. George was taken aback, to say the least, by this suggestion. I mean, here you had an amazing song written by one of the biggest recording stars of all time, the most successful songwriter ever. A Beatle, no less, and a bona fide musical genius. And no offense to Thelma Houston, but what? This should have been a no-brainer. Just use the Wings recording and start cashing the checks. But to cut Saltzman some slack, nothing like this had ever been done in the Bond franchise before. McCartney's offering was an epic departure from the tried and true formula. It's not like previous Bond anthems were exactly rock-centric.
Single file to a calypso beat all the while. They're looking for the cat.
Diamonds are forever.
But Martin wasn't having it. He told Saltzman that this was the final version of the song and no one else was going to be singing it. And if Wings didn't sing McCartney's song over to the opening credits, no one would, and no one else did. This was enough to convince the skeptical Saltzman. The original Live and Let Die soundtrack included 14 tracks, opening with McCartney's title cut and ending with the familiar James Bond theme.
And your heart was an open book.
The music for most of the Bond films up until Diamonds Are Forever had been scored by John Barry, as most of you know, if you're a fan of the Bond music. But having fallen out with Saltzman over the previous title song, John Barry wasn't around for the score duties. And that's why Martin picked up the torch this time around. George worked closely with director Guy Hamilton, who described what the music should convey in each scene. And only minor changes to the finished score were really asked for. Now, as we continue to break down this James Bond classic, I do want to recognize our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear. You know, if you're in a pinch and you need glasses right now, like right away, Zenni has you covered. Right now, they have a new program called Fast Frame, where you can order single vision glasses today and get them in just 3 to 5 business days. Go to Zenni.com today to see for yourself. So Live and Let Die is to date the only James Bond film to feature its theme song performed on screen as part of the movie, namely when Bond visits a nightclub in New Orleans. It turns out that Saltzman got his soulful rendition after all that he craved. When news started to spread that Paul McCartney was taking on a James Bond theme, opinions were definitely mixed. For instance, the New Music Express said the song is not intrinsically very interesting, but the film will help to sell it and vice versa. Conversely, Cashbox called the song absolutely magnificent in every respect. McCartney, recounting an article about the song, said, I remember a thing in Rolling Stone that said McCartney's going to do Live and Let Die, so it's come to this, has it? I thought, you silly sods. Because we were talking to another paper, and when I said I was going to do Live and Let Die, the 007 thing, the reporter said, hey man, that's real hip. So it just depends which way you look at it. And I guess it's always been that way for Paul McCartney, for the Beatles, and for musicians in general. You know, some people won't like your work, especially McCartney's solo career. There were so many critics that had a lot to say about that. You know, that's okay. Why do so many so-called critics have to focus on the negative anyway? I mean, look, you don't have to like everything that Paul McCartney has ever written, but the man is a musical genius. So, you know, if one of his compositions doesn't resonate with you, it might be worth asking or, you know, taking a minute to ask why. You know, maybe you've missed something.
This ever-changing world in which we live in.
In my opinion, I think that Live and Let Die was a novel undertaking. I mean, the track owns the distinction of being the first rock song to open a Bond film. Live and Let Die is the Bond theme that fans of the franchise didn't know that they needed until they heard it. Rich with variety, the song begins slow, even reflective. And then without warning, it breaks into an electric flurry of bombastic symphonic rock, capturing the excitement of the world's most famous secret agent. It just blows you away. It does me. It was the opening shot on that all-important question whenever a Bond theme was going to be done. Who's going to perform the theme song to the movie? I mean, that's where it all started, really. So the song alternates throughout between atmospheric ballad and explosive up-tempo rock, and even throws in a reggae-flavored breakdown in the middle.
When you got a job to do, you gotta do it well.
This abrupt back and forth gives it a built-in sense of drama, which musically mimics the alternating on-screen scenes of intense action and smooth 007 ladies' man charm. Though lyrically, the song is pretty simple, it's still thought-provoking. The title plays off the coexistent ideal, live and let live. Said McCartney, I thought live and let die. Okay, really what they mean is live and let live. And there's the switch. So I came at it from the very obvious angle. I just thought when you were younger, you used to say that, but now you say this. So it just found its way easily into the song, really. It's a turn of phrase that's certainly fitting for someone in Bond's line of work. I mean, 007 doesn't have the luxury of taking the time to evaluate who gets to live and who gets to die. When your life is in danger and you've got a job to do, you got to do it well. You got to give the other fellow hell. It's the perfect statement for James Bond.
You got to give the other fella hell.
If it comes down to me or you, it ain't going to be you. The film itself was the 8th Bond installment. It was released in the U.S. on June 27, 1973, with a budget of $7 million. Its profits far exceeded its costs. It grossed $162 million worldwide. They were the biggest box office numbers for a Bond flick up to that point. Thanks in part to Paul McCartney, really. The movie was filled with many of the familiar Bond tropes, girls, gadgets, goons, and the obligatory subterranean control room. That last one would change locales in later Bond films, but the gist was usually the same. Some supervillain scheming to take over the world from a secluded hideout. For this particular installment, there was also the addition of voodoo ceremonies, the chase scenes with planes, boats, and automobiles, killer sharks, poisonous snakes, and man-eating crocodiles. I mean, I'll leave the plot synopsis to IMDb, but you get the drift. I mean, James Bond is always action-packed. It's always thrilling. And I think McCartney was smart to associate himself with it because he set the bar for the theme that would follow. Upon its release, McCartney's Live and Let Die was the most successful Bond theme up to that point. And it was the first to be nominated for the Academy Award for Best Original Song, believe it or not. Live and Let Die went to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it went to number 1 on the US Cashbox chart. But surprisingly, on its home turf in the UK, it only reached number 9. Elsewhere in the world, Live and Let Die reached number 20 in New Zealand, number 5 in Australia, and number 2 in Canada and Norway.
Makes you give it up.
So as I was doing this, looking back on this song, I was curious how Live and Let Die stacked up against the Bond themes that followed. Since Live and Let Die, there have been, I think, 17 more films. And here's how the best of them fared. Carly Simon's Nobody Does It Better from 1977's The Spy Who Loved Me went to number 7 in the UK and number 2 in the US.
Half as good as you.
1981's For Your Eyes Only, performed by Sheena Easton. That went to number 8 in the UK and it went to number 4 in the US.
For your eyes only.
Duran Duran's A View to a Kill in 85 went to number 2 in the UK, and it topped the singles chart on the Hot 100 here, making it the only Bond theme ever to reach number 1 in the US in the rock era.
With a view to a kill.
Since that time, Bond's musical fortunes have fared much better in the UK than the States, where the average ranking comes in at, I think, number 52. Meanwhile, the lowest entry on the British charts is Sheryl Crow's Tomorrow Never Dies. It came in at number 12. Though the themes from the Timothy Dalton and Pierce Brosnan eras both turned in some impressive numbers, it's been the Daniel Craig film themes that have ruled the day in the UK. Skyfall by Adele climbed to number 2. Sam Smith's Writings on the Wall for Spectre went to number 1.
'Cause the writings on the wall.
Most recently, No Time to Die by Billie Eilish also claimed #1 in the UK.
I should have known.
Again, these numbers are just for the United Kingdom. The numbers in the States haven't been nearly as impressive. So chart-wise, it's clear Live and Let Die is up there with the best of them. In fact, A View to a Kill beat it on both sides of the Atlantic. Putting it to the listening test, though, I gotta say that I think Live and Let Die wins out overall. When you take into consideration how revolutionary it was at the time and how dynamic it is from a musical standpoint, I think the burden of proof is on the rest to make the case for best Bond theme, though Duran Duran comes into the close second for me. As for pop culture appearances, Live and Let Die has had a prolific run in the public consciousness. It's appeared in several movies and TV shows, including Fists of Bruce Lee in '78, Grosse Point Blank in '97. Love that scene. It was also in King of the Hill in 2001, The In-Laws in 2003, Life on Mars.
The left brake's not working.
Shrek the Third in 2007.
When you were young and your heart.
American Hustle in 2013.
Live and let die.
And the Grand Tour in 2016. Also worth noting is that Paul gave a memorable performance of Live and Let Die during his 1973 hour-long TV special, James Paul McCartney.
Ladies and gentlemen, James Paul McCartney.
The show consisted of a series of musical performances by Wings and Paul.
When you were young and your heart.
And included a pyrotechnically enhanced explosive ending to the song. Literally. The explosion was actually a lot bigger than was anticipated. McCartney was thrown off his stool, a guitarist Henry McCullough was knocked flat on his back, and fiery wood chips rained down on the audience. But that's not the only performance worth mentioning. There was also the 2005 Super Bowl halftime show. Live and Let Die was the only non-Beatles song in McCartney's set, and this time the fireworks went according to plan.
Live and let die.
And then, of course, Live and Let Die has also been covered by a lot of other musicians over the years. A little sampling of this long list includes Hole in 1995. There's Real Big Fish in 1997. David Arnold featuring Chrissie Hynde in '97.
Live and let die.
The London Theatre Orchestra had a great version in '97. Fergie in 2007. There's Duffy in 2009 and Billy Joel in 2014.
Live and let die.
And the most memorable cover of all, 1991's Guns N' Roses, their interpretation, which went to number 33 on the Hot 100, went to number 20 on the mainstream rock chart, and did well around the world as well. It was used in the Grosse Point Blank scene, right, that we just saw. With the power to still capture audiences decades after the original release, it just goes to show that McCartney crafted one hell of a song. I was able to take my dad to Paul McCartney some years ago, and of course, Paul played Live and Let Die in the stadium with the fireworks going off, with the music, and seeing the excitement in my father's eyes as the stadium exploded into a fierce sing-along is a memory that sticks with me even more so since he passed away. My dad was the one who showed me the stellar track back in the day, when I was young and my heart was an open book. And to experience it with him as an adult was just really special. Leave us a comment about Paul McCartney, Wings, and Live and Let Die. Where does it rank within the catalog of James Bond themes in your mind? Which 007 theme do you think is the best? Let's get a discussion going. If you enjoyed this episode, we've got plenty of other Beatles-related content coming your way, from Paul's Penny Lane to John's Come Together to George's Something to Ringo's With a Little Help from My Friends. We got you covered. Also, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you never miss out on our daily videos. Join us in our mission to keep the music alive. Until next time, 3 chords.